Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our virtual stop on our Building Pennsylvania's Beloved Community statewide tour. I want to take this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Amanda Brothman. I'm the Director of Communication. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director to walk you through what the PHRC is, the different things that we offer, what our beloved community is, and then we're going to open up for some dialogue and discussion about concerns or just things that you're seeing in your community. So at this point, I'm going to turn over to Executive Director Chad Dion Lassiter.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you, everyone who's here. Um, our goal is to get out to these respective counties, but one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to put this presentation today in the virtual space. This is the PHRC on the road, building Pennsylvania's beloved community. We thought internally that it was very important for the PHRC to get to all 67 counties, not from an either or perspective, but a both and perspective, both to inform people, to give them knowledge of who the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission is, and to learn from the communities. Every community has something that speaks to them. There's a lot of strengths in community conversation, community dialogues. So once again, this is not government overreaching. This is government coming in the spirit of listener, coming in the spirit of learner. And so as we get through this PowerPoint presentation, there are two slides in which those of you who are visitors in this space is participatory. It's your words around what's going on in your community. The end goal of visiting all 67 counties is to culminate this in a report that we will share with each county, that we will share with multiple stakeholders, that really tells the picture of what is happening in Pennsylvania. And so as we get ready to go to the next slide, we'll get into what the beloved community is. So once again, it's important for us to look at things from a perspective of not assuming that everyone knows what the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission is. But in some, we've been around since 1955. So next year, we'll be celebrating 70 years of fighting for the rights of all citizens. It's important to say that again, all citizens in the Commonwealth. So who are the PHRC? We're the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, been in existence since 1955. We're the Commonwealth Civil Rights Enforcement Agency. We're an independent commission created and directed by the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, and some, the PHRA, and the Pennsylvania Fair Educational Opportunity Act. In general, Pennsylvania law prohibits discrimination based on all of these indices right here. Next slide, please. A little bit more about the PHRC. Pennsylvania law protects you from discrimination in these areas, though we know that discrimination oftentimes occurs in these areas. What are those areas? Employment, obtaining a job or working at one, education, attending public or private school, college, trade, school, or university, housing, renting, buying, selling, or getting a loan for a home, commercial property, having access to or the purchase, sale, or lease of commercial property, public accommodations, being able to access public places and or services. Next slide. What are some of the discrimination examples? Even in 2024, the first bullet highlights firing or demoting someone based on factors other than job performance, denying a student with a disability the use of a service animal. That's very important when we're looking at service animals because they bring a sense of comfort for individuals who may have a form of trauma, a form of anxiety. And we have individuals who are denied the opportunity to have a service animal, and that's a form of discrimination. Firing a person just because they are pregnant. Who would imagine in 2024 that people are being fired because they are pregnant? But this is a form of discrimination that we see. Refusing to rent to an individual because of race, sex, or religion. Refusing to serve a customer wearing religious headgear. And then lastly, creating school policies that could provide different treatment for students of different races, religions, sex, etc. These are examples of discrimination examples. The key thing that we tell everyone when we do these beloved community tour presentations is the most powerful thing that people have at their disposal is to file a complaint. I don't want to make it seem like it's easy though, because there is something that we call a paralysis of silence where your hands are sweaty, your palms are sweaty, you have this feeling in your gut that something is just not right. And so, what should you do? And what we say is if you feel you have experienced illegal discrimination, contact the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. We have 3 regional offices. And in fact, our table of organization is the governor's office. Though we're an independent agency, we come out of the governor's office, but we're independent. We have 11 commissioners. At any point in time, we can have 6 who are Republican, 5 can be Democrat, or the inverse. Me as the executive director, 3 regional offices, 3 amazing regional directors. The one in Harrisburg, Heather Rolfe. The one in Pittsburgh, Dr. LaDawn Robinson. The one in Philadelphia, Wadey Rivera. And then you have individuals who make up the senior management team to the PHRC. A director of enforcement, Adrian Garcia, who used to be the director of Fair Housing Commercial Property. You heard from Director Amanda Brockman, who's our spokesperson. It begins and ends with her creativity around how we get information to the public, whether that's media advisories, whether that's press releases, whether that's our social media, and that being X, that being LinkedIn, that being Facebook, that also being Instagram, and a whole assortment of other things. Our Director of Education, Desiree Chang, who's in the space of education and equity for all students of the Commonwealth, educational and equity for all students in the Commonwealth, education and equity for all students in the Commonwealth. Our Director of Civil Rights, Cheryl Meck, our Director of Civil Rights, who's doing some amazing things, 2 hearing examiners who are almost like our judges, a Director of Policy and Intergovernmental Affairs, a Deputy Chief Counsel, our new Chief Counsel, who ironically started today, make up this senior management team. We want the public to know with these complaints, they must be filed within 180 days of alleged harm. We bold in this part where we say a dedicated, trained, unbiased PHRC investigator will walk you through the process so you're not alone. We want the community to know that they're not alone. So when we go, I think we've been to about 40 counties so far, we really stress the fact that we sit with individuals and walk them through the process. And it's very important that we don't just, in theory, talk about an unbiased PHRC investigator. We actually have trainings for our investigators. We want our investigators to also make sure that we're not leaning in and we're not displaying with a form of bias, because we've all been socialized. We've all been racialized into ways of thinking, whether that's prejudice or whatever terminology you want to use. And so it's important for the PHRC to constantly be training ourselves. The other key ingredient here is that complainants do not incur any attorney fees during the investigation process on the PHRC. They have the right, they certainly have the right to obtain, private legal services, but it's advantageous for them to know, and for the public to know, and for everyone to know that during the investigation process from the PHRC, there are no attorney fees. Once again, you can see our regional office, Harrisburg, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. Next slide. Training and initiatives. So once again, we are guided by our Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, but it's very important that there are some trainings that take place. The trainings, from a structural standpoint, come to the PHRC through a portal. So it's not PHRC saying, hey, County A, County B, you need a training. It's the counties, it's the enterprise, it's the industry, it's the school district, it's the governmental relations aspect, it's the larger ecosystem that reaches out to the PHRC and say, we would like a training on housing protections. We would like a training on what to do when you are discriminated against because you live in a rural area, a suburban area, you live in a urban area, or because you're pregnant, or because you're disabled. So the PHRC, we provide free trainings. Once again, the prior slide spoke about how we take your complaints and there's no attorney fee. This slide here hones in on free trainings being the operative word to schools, employers, businesses, community groups, local government, law enforcement, and others. Training topics include, but are not limited to, what you see here: civil rights and filing a complaint, preventing discrimination in the workplace and schools. That's that word: bias, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that we tend to kind of run from here at the PHRC. We look at it as belonging. We look at it as humanity. We look at it from a perspective of, you're from an urban area, that's fine. You're from a suburban area, that's fine. You're from a Rural area, that's fine. We see the richness and we see the dignity and the worth of the human being that is in front of us. And so there's a beauty to diversity. There's a beauty to how Pennsylvania is growing from a diverse perspective, how we're keeping some of our students who are graduating from the majority of our prestigious universities in Pennsylvania. So when James Carville, some years ago, Democratic strategist for the Bill Clinton administration, mentioned that you have Philadelphia, you have Pittsburgh, and in between you have Kentucky. We don't believe that at the PHRC. We believe you have Philadelphia, you have Pittsburgh, and in between, you have people who are practicing peace and justice. You do have people who are struggling. You do have people who are concerned about living wages. You do have people who are concerned about infrastructure. You do have people who are concerned about the challenges of ethnic and racial intimidation. You do have people who are concerned about illegal immigration. You do have people who are building beloved communities, whether that they are in the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whether they're individuals who are coaches, athletic or otherwise. And so at PHRC, we look at diversity, equity, inclusion as belonging. We look at it as humanity, fair housing. Oh my God. Some of the work that we're doing in the fair housing space, we have a fair housing show that airs on PCN for those who do have cable. Pennsylvania Cable Network airs the first and third Sunday of every month. And we're in our 5th year, fair housing and hoarding, fair housing and the support animals, the violations of the Fair Housing Act, what to do when you're being discriminated for housing. And then the beauty of home ownership is something that we talk about too under fair housing. And then moving down, we have the PHRC. We offer education and outreach programs, which include our social justice lunch and learns. We have one coming up this week, our Diversity Speak series, our social justice lecture series, our No Hate in Our State town halls, and our racial tension reduction response team. Next slide. What is this beloved community? So I first start, before I go into this slide, of saying that all of us are part of a beloved community. All of us are part of a beloved community. You heard me in the aforementioned mention that it may be a Boy Scout or Girl Scout for someone. It may have been that track team. A beloved community is a term popularized by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Abraham Yahshua Heschel that calls on each of us to take responsibility for the common good. There's a group of residents, usually within one geographic area, that work together across racial lines, gender lines, and ethnic lines through the guiding principles of unity and love for humanity. Through the guiding principles of unity and love for humanity. Those words just, I love the sound of them. The guiding principles of unity and love for humanity. And the beloved community simply says, it's okay if you're atheist and agnostic. It's okay if you're Scientologist. It's okay if you're Jewish. It's okay if you're a Christian. It's okay if you are a Buddhist. It's okay if you're Democrat. It's okay if you're Republican. It's okay if you're disabled. Whatever you are, come into the beloved community. And what we're trying to do at the PHRC and what we've been attempting to do over a considerable period of time is really be that convener, be that bridge where there's so much civil discourse and people talking past one another and people judging people. Oh, you voted for Trump. Oh, you're a libertarian. Oh, you're an independent. Oh, you didn't vote. Oh, you're from an urban area, suburban area, rural area. The beloved community says, come on in, no matter who you are. When you come in, let's humble ourselves and have a level of civility. Let's listen to one another. Let's learn from one another. So if that's us being in Towanda County and then saying, we don't have a racial issue up here. It's infrastructure. It's a lack of transportation. And if we're in another county and they say, hey, it's affordable housing. When we're in Erie and they say it's faulty pipes and how there's a lot of challenges with the streets not being handicap accessible or wheelchair accessible and things of that nature. So once again, that beloved community is a concept, but it starts within ourselves. How can we make ourselves into a beloved community by recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of the individual that we, or individuals that we come into contact with? So at the PHRC, to achieve this concept, we have 6 social justice committees. And I want to stop here and just thank those who are here and that are not a part of PHRC, because the next couple of slides gets into the participatory part. This is just the overview. It gets into the participatory part where we ask you some of the questions that are germane to you. So just going through this really briefly, we have the Educational Equity Committee, and this is spearheaded by Desiree Chang, our brilliant Director of Education, where it's looking at educational equity outcomes for all students in the Commonwealth. Our Fair Housing and Commercial Property Committee, this is spearheaded by Brittany Millinger, one of our outreach coordinators. And if you really want to learn about fair housing in the Commonwealth and everything that goes with it, check out some of our materials online, some of our fair housing ABCs, and all of our trainings and modules around fair housing. It's just something that's so super impressive. Our Policy and Pennsylvania Human Relations Act Committee, which is going to be spearheaded by our new Director of Policy and Governmental Affairs, Elena Berman. Our Diversity and Inclusion Committee, there's that word again. There's that word again, right? Or words that people are trying to run from. And this is spearheaded by Gregory Holtz. And we've done a lot of things in diversity and inclusion with this particular committee that's looking at addressing Islamophobia, addressing anti-Semitism, addressing AAPI hate, addressing some of the issues that we see or challenges that we see in rural PA, making sure that we bridge the divide in the Commonwealth from looking at individuals like a kaleidoscope made up of beautiful colors, made up of beautiful individuals, not perfect, but all trying to live their lives in a way that they can be productive citizens in this democracy. Our Police and Community Relations Committee, one that was important to us, that is spearheaded by Stacey Waters, that's looking at how we need to work with communities to see the humanity in our law enforcement and not looking at things from a deficit model, but also wanting communities to recognize that law enforcement, as I'm touching my heart, they have a heart. It beats. They too, when they do a traffic stop, they too, meaning law enforcement, when they knock on the door to administer a warrant of some kind, they want to get home to their families as well. They want to see their children christened. They want to see their babies walking down the aisle. They want to see their families each and every day. And then our program Community Outreach and Training Committee, which is spearheaded by our brilliant Director of Communications, Amanda Brofman. So this is just a beloved community in context. And then next slide. We have social justice ambassadors. PHRC, we can't be in all places. Our current complement is 88, and there are 13 million people in the Commonwealth. We don't speculate, we don't hypothesize. Some of us, because of the relations that we have with social justice ambassadors, advisory councils, and stakeholders, we know of the salient issues that are in a particular community. But our social justice ambassador program, appointed by the PHRC to serve as an extension of our outreach efforts within the community, acts as a nonpartisan basis to assist the commission in exploring training outreach and event opportunities in their respective communities to further our mission. The third bullet, functions as a commission liaison in promoting awareness of the existence and purposes of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. Let me stop there. It's not solely about filing a complaint, as those of you who are viewing this have seen. There are times where people will reach out to the PHRC and simply say, hey, PHRC, we're having an event on sex trafficking and human trafficking. We're having an event on something over here at the farm show. We're having an event. We want you all to be aware of this. And sometimes we're a passer through. Individuals will share with us some pertinent data. And because we have large networks, we will reach out to those affinity groups, whether that's LGBTQ+, whether those are the groups in the rural areas, wherever they may be. And we'll simply say, hey, we know of a community that's having this event. You may want to spread this data out as well. But once again, we facilitate this. Social justice ambassadors will facilitate potential venues where trainings and meetings and other outreach events occur. And we're open to people applying. I think right now we have about 41 or 42, and none of the social justice ambassadors would be in this space without the dedication and the fortitude of Stacey Waters in this space. Next slide. These are the angels, or whatever type of terminology you want to use. These are the people that are really the lifeline of the PHRC. We're very, very appreciative of the staff. But these are like the social justice ambassadors. Social justice ambassadors are volunteers. Our advisory council members are volunteers as well. Who are they? Well, in some, they connect PHRC resources and information to communities throughout PA. They raise awareness about all Pennsylvanians' rights to live, work, and learn free from unlawful discrimination. That's important that all of us in PA, no matter where we come from, our governor says it more eloquently than I, no matter who we love or who we pray to or don't pray to, we have the right to live, to work, and to learn free from unlawful discrimination. We have the right to be Republicans. We have a right to be Democrats. We have a right to love honey. We have a right to love whatever we love in this Commonwealth and to make sure that we're not discriminated because of any of these things. While the PHRC is active throughout Pennsylvania, local leaders such as yourselves, you have a much keener sense of the urgent issues, needs, and priorities of your communities. How dare we, and we don't do it, but how dare we come in with a peculiar arrogance to tell you, well, this is what's happening in Luzerne County. This is what's happening in Tioga County. No, 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 no. We don't do that. Our advisory councils, they're the ones that advocate for their communities. They are the ones that will let us know, hey, we need no hate in our state town hall here. They're the ones that need to let us know, hey, people are being bullied in this particular community, this particular environment. They assist community members with filing complaints because oftentimes these things, like filing a complaint, can be hard. We talked about that paralysis of silence. Sometimes it's just the ambivalence of being retaliated against. And so it might be easy for some at PHRC to say, use advocacy, use agency, step up, speak out. That's really hard. That's really hard. But advisory councils, they have that ability because they have that relationship. They plan events, trainings, and discussions that educate their communities and celebrate the diversity within their communities. And as you see with the stars, these are where some of our advisory councils are. And once again, QR code if anyone's interested. Next slide. Some upcoming events, you can see those from Dialogue to Action, Community Engagement, and Racial Justice as Catalyst for Education Equity. That's taking place, tomorrow. And then earlier you heard me talk about the plethora of amazing, magnetic, and magnificent fair housing things that are taking place. Fair Housing and Power Hour, housing protections for LGBTQ plus individuals in Pennsylvania. I believe the next slide gets to those of you who are here from the various counties that you're here from, and we open it up to you. We open up with what housing issues do you see in your community? And whoever would like to come off of mute and share with us, we're here and we're all ears.
Well, on the housing front, I mean, this isn't necessarily regarding discrimination, but like I think across Pennsylvania and in the country, we see a lack of housing inventory. So it's, and it's across the board from all types of housing, affordability ranges. It's something that, in the city of Hermitage, we've been trying to focusing on is how do we spur housing development because there's a lack of available housing.
Okay, thank you. I know one of our subscribers is taking down this information. Anyone else with regards to housing issues in your respective community? Okay. What about education issues in your particular catchment area? What are some of the education issues?
Well, we have a fairly strong public school system. I mean, we've seen, as is true in most Western Pennsylvania communities, we've seen some shrinking enrollments that have made it challenging for some of our school districts. On the higher education front, again, because of some shrinking enrollments, Butler County Community College has a branch campus at Linden Point in the city of Hermitage, but their enrollment has declined to a point, I think their current enrollment somewhere only around 35 students. So they're actively talking to Penn State branch campus, which is just a few miles away in downtown Sharon, about a collaboration of sorts. But so, those affordable options like community college now are becoming challenging in our community. Even Penn State, I mean, they have been looking at what they call their Commonwealth campuses, which are these branch campuses. We haven't, it's not at a level of like, are they going to close the campus? But there are budgetary issues that even large institutions like Penn State have faced that have put some pressure on the Commonwealth campuses like ours in Sharon.
If I may, the shrinking of enrollment, what do you attribute that to? Are young people going into trades vocation? Are they going to college out of state? Are they finding college to not be affordable? In your opinion, what is it that you attribute it to?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. Like when you look at community college, the general trend is when the economy is doing well and employment is up and wages are up, fewer people tend to enroll in community college. They actually do better when the economy's rougher. And that's in part because folks, find employment where they can earn decent wages when the economy is strong. And so when it's not, they're more apt to access community college and try to get some credentials.
Okay.
I think the other thing is shrinking population. So in most of these Western Pennsylvania communities, you continue to see shrinking population. We're trying to address that. Our lead economic development agency has a homegrown initiative that looks to address that. It's kind of shocking to me, having lived here primarily all my life. We went through a lot of dislocation in the early 1980s when manufacturing and steel mills shut down, and we had a very high unemployment rate in the Shenango Valley. Our unemployment rate was around 25%. And having gone through that time, I'm shocked to see that on a census basis, on a percentage basis, our population decline is more pronounced in this last decade than it was at that time. Now, whole number wise, it might not be, but on a percentage basis, it is.
Wow.
Now, I get the sense, I don't want to paint a doom and gloom picture. Don't have statistics to back it up, but it feels like there's a sense that people are starting to look more at rural communities, and there's an opportunity there. And I've had some conversations with folks that lead me to think that, and then there's been some national articles. So, in terms of affordability, people being able to buy a home, have some property, avoid congestion and some of the other things that come from more populated areas, there seems to be somewhat of a trend of folks migrating into some rural communities.
No, thank you for your perspective, and in no way did I feel as though you were painting a picture of gloom or doom. Our director of Fair Housing Commercial Property, Director Eister, and I have been very intimately involved in looking at those trends where you pointed out a lot of what the literature is actually stating. Even more so, people also are looking for safe environments against the backdrop of public safety in a lot of areas where people feel as though they need to move out of communities because of public safety. And that ties into this next question of employment. What employment issues do you see in your community, and not just you, but anyone that's from any of those counties? Because I'm not certain who all's on the call, but certainly if you want to lead in with employment issues, feel free.
Guess I'm not afraid to speak, and I hope others chime in.
I love your passion. I love your passion.
So, I think there's somewhat of a mindset in the public still that there are a lack of jobs. When you talk to employers, you don't hear that. There actually is a need for human capital in workforce. In some areas, we're aging out. So, for example, this morning I was at a coffee meeting that our local chamber has, and there was a gentleman there from Boston who works for a pharmaceutical company who just happened to be in town. And he was asking me, well, like these service industries, he's talking to a financial planner, and he said, well, my sense is like it's a saturated market here and probably tough to break in. And I told him probably the opposite, because we're aging out. So, I don't practice much, but I'm a lawyer. Our bar association is aging out. We need lawyers. The financial planner said the same thing in her industry, that, it's aging out. You're seeing some of that in manufacturing as well. We do need some skilled people as well. There's probably a need for, higher level training and credentialing of some folks. But I think there are opportunities here. We could probably, use a little bit more high-tech jobs. And that's a double-edged sword. I knew a gentleman locally who created a software development company, and he actually has customers. He basically markets to auto dealers across the country and internationally. He was having a hard time finding software developers in our area. So sometimes, it goes both ways. But yeah, I mean, I think we need human capital is the thing. It's not so much, it's hard to find a job, at least right now.
So walk me through this question here. I'm 16. I'm between the age of 16 and 24. What keeps me in this county, and what drives me to leave this county?
So I think part of what would keep you in this county is probably family ties would be one thing. Cost of living. We do have like a lot of beautiful outdoor amenities. If you're an outdoors person, everything from hunting, fishing to walking in nature, bird watching, boating. We have those amenities. What drives you away is in part like a lack of other young people. The excitement of city life, where there's something going on outside of work on a regular basis that you can access more readily. It took me, I'm 60 now, so I'm at my later stages of my career, but I didn't get married until I was in my mid 40s. And, I remember a point of time in my 30s, I was kind of like, well, it's hard to find somebody in my area. Should I move? And I think there's still some of that out there.
Wow.
So this is I'm Shanna. Mark, I'm in your county as well. So I was one that grew up in this area, and then after college moved away, and then eventually I went to Slippery Rock University.
Okay.
And then I graduated 6 months after 9/11, which all the industries were on a spiral downfall, and I ended up moving out to New York City. So the attraction of the city life did draw me away. I spent some time in the South as well, but wondering like what keeps people here and what or brings them back, family. I will say cost of living here, I was able to afford a much larger home in a close to our parks. My kids could enjoy those outdoor activities Mark was speaking about. But I can see like my kids are going into high school, and they're talking about too it really the attractive employment that is all over social media is maybe not here. And so that's I think that is one thing that draws people away as well from where they grew up, is to have different experiences. And we don't have, I'd say we're pretty homogeneous in this area as well. We don't have much diversity. I mean, there's some, but not nearly as much as I never regret my experiences in New York City. They opened my eyes to beautiful things.
Wow.
But I think that as well, having those different perspectives, experiences, is very attractive as well, from kind of expanding from, and kind of leaving what you know to experience something new. So those are just
Wow.
my 2 cents of having kind of experienced it.
Wow. I wouldn't say it was 2 cents. I think that was brilliant, but thank you so much. So for both you and Mark, given the context of a lot of what you shared, aging out population, when we were in Forest City, we met a lot of young people that said that they didn't have a lot of things that appealed to them, so that when they went to Scranton University, they would graduate and they would go somewhere else. And then when a parent began to parents started aging, they would come back and take care of that parent. But then their industry wasn't there. So if I went to law school at Scranton, and then I graduated, I was working in a law firm, to your point, in New York or New Jersey or Philadelphia or somewhere else in the region, and then I came back to Forest City, and they don't have that law kind of that I'm practicing. A lot of the young people were telling us, here I am, 32, with a law degree, unemployed, taking care of an elderly mother or father. To what you just stated, do you see a lot of young people who are coming back and they fit that category, where they're coming back credentialed, they're coming back with licensures, whether that's trade, vocational, JD, whatever the degree may be, but they come back to this area and then there's no job for them? And so do you all see any high rates or any modicum of homelessness in your area?
Yeah, I don't, I can't put a percentage on it, but homelessness is certainly a problem here, as it is in other places. I mean, we don't see necessarily like the tent cities or the people on the streets, but if you put your ear to the ground, you know that it's an issue. We tend to see, at least from my experience, people a little bit older coming back to look after older adults. So sometimes in their 50s and even 60s, coming back here, post-career or at the tail end of their career. We also, I see too, maybe it doesn't translate into certain law careers, but remote working. So there is an opportunity for some of those folks to come back and work remotely, depending on what they're doing. Give you an example. You find these people every once in a while in the community. There's a younger person that I found here who works for an outer space company. He's an electrical engineer. He works remotely. They're located in Reston, Virginia. Every so often he has to travel down there, not too often. So, I think with remote work, I think more of those folks could come back and still have their career.
Yeah, Mark, that was my case as well. I went virtual. I was in the financial services industry at the time. I went virtual, and that was the only way that I was able to come back. I'm now a nonprofit, but at that time, that was how I was able to do it. Was having that virtual opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Anything in from your perspective, and it's not on here, but we're always open to listen. We're always open to learning because it helps us lead. How are race relations in the community?
Hard for me to judge that. I mean, I think I would say, my lifetime, I would think that people are certainly more accepting of African American population. I mean, we've always had a significant African American population in the Shenango Valley, primarily in Sharon and Farrell. On the other hand, I would observe that even though we don't see it here, more and more people are vexed by immigration in this part of the state, which always kind of puzzled me because the things that they envision. I mean, we don't see folks immigrating to our county, which I guess kind of makes sense. Sometimes people are afraid of the unknown. They envision certain things that aren't accurate because they're not familiar with it.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting to me. I was in the state legislature for 16 years, and I had a couple phone calls, and they kind of went like this. Hey, can you help us out? We have a guy in our church. He's from X country in Central America, and he's trying to stay in the country. He's really good. He comes to our church. He pays his taxes. He works. He's got a family. He's not like these immigrants that we read about. And my answer to them is, unfortunately, I said I'm at the state level, so I really can't do a whole lot. But that's actually the picture of the average immigrant. That yes, they go to a house of worship. They work. They pay taxes. They obey the law. But there's a perception that that's the exception rather than the rule.
And I know Mark and I seem to be kind of taking over the conversation, but I agree with that. Especially I'm 45, so I'm about 15 years younger than Mark, and being away and coming back. I guess, and working in the industry that I do, and being out in the community, I feel like there is tension amongst different races. Like I said, we're pretty homogeneous, and folks are pretty unopen to new people or new experiences. As Mark said, I think that fear of the unknown, or whatever you hear on TV, is what it will be, instead of experiencing people for themselves. So I do a lot of statistics for the nonprofit that I work in, and our county is only 6.6% African American, and a much larger Latino population. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I think people put stereotypes on them in this area and kind of stick to them, unless there is this one person that's kind of what they think is an anomaly. So it's there if you listen, especially too with any, if you're not, heterosexual, it's just, this area is, to me, is more closed-minded to different people.
Okay. No, I think both what you and Mark have stated here is important. We were up in Forest City for what we call a No Hate in Our State town hall. The community asked for the PHRC to come in because the mayor of Forest City is Latino, identifies as LGBTQ+, wanted to raise some funds for a community center that was both for LGBTQ+ individuals, as well as individuals who are not LGBTQ+. The vacuum in Forest City was that there was no community centers. There's not a library that is open consistently. There hadn't been a playground, swings, or swimming pool, all those things that Mark so eloquently stated with regards to nature for that part of the PA. Received some death threats. We went up to do a No Hate in Our State town hall, and I was running some metrics and some research as well. It was about a 5-hour drive. We, as stated before, we have 3 regional offices. I was working out of the Philadelphia regional office. I'm from Philadelphia. Ended up driving up to Forest City, 5-hour ride. Get up to Forest City, and because of the data that I was reading, it prejudiced me. Right? And once again, that's what the beloved community is about: is us to be very, very frank and very candid with each other, and use candor, and to operate in truth, love, and kindness. And got up into the No Hate in Our State town hall, and other than Stacy Waters, one of our outreach coordinators, and myself, there was about 140 or so people. Director Brockman was there. Our then Director of Policy and Governmental Affairs was there, and our then Chief Counsel was there. And up until that point, it was just Stacy and myself as the only African Americans. And when I walked in, I saw 3 individuals who had Confederate shirts on, and one had a Confederate hat. And that's his right. And he was talking to one of the law enforcement. So when we go in, I'm having all types of stereotypes. I'm like, oh wow, what is this? It was a very amazing No Hate in Our State town hall. We broke down divisions with race dialogue. Folk were very clear on how they felt. To your point about LGBTQ plus, folk were honest in saying that they're xenophobic, they're homophobic, they're transphobic. Other people were honest in saying, well, we just need more information. Is the community center going to be inclusive? So much occurred there that when the night had concluded, there were more hugs and more high fives that I received in that community that I had never knew about, other than, Scranton, PA, and Joe Biden and Bob Casey Sr., Bob Casey Jr., than communities that I grew up in. More hugs. I'm going to say it again, more hugs, more passing along like, hey, stay in contact. Want to learn more about PHRC. Love your philosophy about the beloved community. And so I think that there is a frightening moment that we find ourselves in. Director Meck, if you can come off of speaker really quick and share where we're going to be Wednesday and the backdrop of that No Hate in Our State town hall.
Absolutely. So this Wednesday from 5:30 to 7:30, we'll be at Dee's Event Center in Charleroi, Pennsylvania, and for a No Hate in Our State town hall. And this is our response into, the rhetoric that you both shared here regarding the Haitian immigration community out there. There's a lot of fear, we're nonpartisan, but Trump's comments can lead to divisive feelings in the area if we take it at its literal context. And so we're coming out there, we're utilizing active social change agents from the community itself to host a panelist to, discuss how we can continue to build a beloved community framework out there. And just to ensure to the people that, hate has no place in PA.
Thank you, Director Meck. And that just acquiesces with all that you all are saying. We met a gentleman out there and we did a beloved community tour presentation in person less than a month ago, who was a Haitian priest, who it was his first public appearance. He works in that community. He talks about, the things that he's doing in that community with whites and others. And he kind of framed out some things that, we really were appreciative of. I think the other thing, though, and we do this in the beloved community, is that we have to be open to individuals who do have a fear that Allentown and Lancaster and Reading and Hazleton and various other places are, from a demographic shift, are becoming brown. And what does that do? We have to also be open to our youngsters are coming home with individuals that others may say we used to be a homogeneous community, but now our community is shifting. And I think that that's what the beloved community. We can skip this slide, Director Brockman. Go to the next one. I think that's what we've been attempting to do with the beloved community, is to show that no matter where we come from in PA, that innately of who we are part of this concept called the human family. I've done some research over in Bergen, Norway. When I first got to Norway, I didn't see anybody that looked like me for the first 2 days. But nevertheless, I was able to break down divisions, and so were they in Bergen, Norway, along the continuum of we're part of this human family. So we want to thank you all. Our goal is to, before we get to this last slide, our goal is to get out. So if we can, to the community once the weather clears, so that we can present to more people. This is the first virtual that we've done. All the other ones, about 40 or so, have been in person. Erie, Towanda County, Lewisburg, where I see the university, Bucknell University is, Montgomery County, Western Park, Westmoreland County, Allegheny, Beaver, Ohio, Island. So our goal is to get out to these counties as well in the spring. But before we conclude, we want to thank you for participating in today's presentation. And are there any last minute things that the two of you would like to share before we wrap up this morning?
Just thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate hearing all about the PHRC. I had some familiarity prior, but learning more and the opportunity to provide some feedback on our community.
Thank you so much. Director Ister, can you put my email address in the chat on my behalf so that our two colleagues here can follow up? Because we definitely want to make sure that we get out in person at some point in time. We think it's beneficial to get to the community, to see the community, learn from the community, and anything else from our other colleague. I don't want to mispronounce anyone's name.
Absolutely. No problem.
Thank you, Director Ister.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we want to thank both of you, and I see a lot of PHRC staff on here, so I want to thank PHRC staff for participating with your hearts and with your minds and your souls this morning. So we look forward to getting out there, and for those who celebrate holidays, happy upcoming holidays. And so once again, thank you for having us in this space.